Welcome to my sewing room. I'm so pleased to have today as my guest Darlene Geisendorff. Darlene is an educational consultant for FOF American Sales, and she has brought the most wonderful projects for me to share with you. The first one I would like to share is this absolutely magnificent rose, which you know how I love to wear beautiful flowers. This part of the rose is simply decorative stitches on netting, and the two leaves are built-in embroidery, absolutely just done on netting and then trimmed away. Isn't that a wonderful project? If you're fortunate enough to own one of these machines that does embroidery. Now, speaking of embroidery machines, this is so cute. This is the embroidery machine, the built-in embroidery outlined on little ultra suede teddy bears. And let me tell you, let me squeak it in the middle. It goes squeak, squeak. And then the little blue ones for little boys. You can put a little squeaker in there. And isn't that an adorable baby present? Again, using the built-in embroidery unit. This is a wonderful wall hanging that says welcome. It even has jingle bells with the absolutely magnificent machine embroidery, of course, all done with just touching a button. Darlene has brought this absolutely precious vest. Now, as you can see, this is a purchased vest. Very easy to do, but guess what? We had all the fun with the embroidery on this. The little green lines happen to be silk ribbon embroidery wound onto the bobbin. The little decorative stitches in here are built-in stitches, and right over here, this is what I find fascinating. The trim that comes down the edge is a tatting stitch, which really looks like it's hand blanket stitch, but it's a little tatting stitch, of course, all done on the machine. Now, the last project that Darlene has brought to share with us is truly magnificent, using the wonderful metallic threads. And of course, she's got a D in the middle for Darlene. Isn't this a wonderful way to present a gift to somebody, or to make pillows for yourself to go in your house to decorate? And I think these metallics are really so nice too for golden wedding anniversaries, to use the golden thread. We have so many exciting techniques for you today that Darlene has especially prepared for you. So won't you come along with me to the technique boards, and we'll get started and once again show you how easy it is to make glorious things on your sewing machine. We have some wonderful tricks to share with you about double needle pin tucks. This is what a double needle pin tuck looks like, and look how pretty it stands up there. Now then, here is showing you how you use a pin tuck foot and let after you've made one pin tuck, you just guide the foot in there and it makes another one right beside it. There are several things you can do, very creative things with double needle pin tucks. This one is corded. In other words, there's a blue cord underneath it, and if you use organdy, as we have used here, the blue shows through and really makes a real pretty shadow pin tuck with the corded pin tuck. Now then, this is a real fun trick to do, making pin tucks which are far apart. Oh, these are not quite an inch, maybe a little bit more than half an inch. And the foot guides over here, makes the pin tuck over here. Now, why did I do it like that? Well, here's the reason. These wide pin tucks, 1, 2, 3, 4, the beautiful built-in machine embroidery in the middle. And you do notice that I've put a little stabilizer behind there for the machine embroidery. Isn't that an elegant effect? Now, I have as my guest today my very dear friend Darlene Geisendorff, who is an educational consultant with FOF American Sales. By the way, Darlene is also the author of a book entitled Traditional Cut Work Made Easy. Darlene, thank you so much for coming to be on the show today, and I can't wait to see what you're going to do.
Thank you. I'm going to start off showing you how to do corded pin tucks. And you can see right here that they're going to raise up. These keep your pin tucks raised instead of folding to one side. And the cording is just following through underneath. I have the machine set up with my cording in this little hole right here that comes through your throat plate. And the thing you need to do is just make sure that your cording is straight back behind the foot. Place one of your previous pin tucks into the groove of the foot and then just begin stitching. Now, what's neat about this is that cording automatically places itself right up in that pin tuck, and had you done it on a shear, it would actually shadow through. So you can do this where it either shadows through or where it just keeps your pin tuck raised up.
It's so pretty and so easy. You didn't have to guide anything. Just
Right.
use the foot and have the cord coming through the little hole.
Now the next thing I would like to show you how to do is how to do the pin tucks that are without the cording, and then how we're going to place decorative stitches between them. Now to do this, I am going to have to change the presser foot because I need to use the one that has the spacing in between it. So we're simply just going to snap this on, and I don't actually need the cording anymore, so let's remove our cording. And I would like to add on what is called a cording blade or a tongue, and that simply snaps onto the throat plate in the same little hole that your cording had previously been in. And then now I'm going to use this this way. The last row of pin tucks is going to go into the outer guide, and now the pin tuck is going to be raised because the cording blade lifts it, gives it extra lift, and we'll just let it follow through. So simple to do. It's just straight stitching, and all I have done is shortened my stitch length to 2. Now then what I need to do is to place a stabilizer underneath the place where I want my decorative stitch to be, but I need to make one quick little switch. I am going to be removing one spool of thread and changing to a single
While you
needle.
do that, I'm going to just get this beautiful blouse that you have brought, which is so elegant. By the way, this is just a built-in stitch on the FOF. It just has the beautiful yellow, but this is what I want to show you that Darlene's getting ready to do on this elegant blouse. She's used her wide foot there and done her double needle pin stitches, and then done this absolutely elegant yellow stitching on this very, very pale yellow linen blouse. And I just think that is so elegant. And Darlene, it's also very tailored. And I think so many women are really looking for tailored, elegant things. Oh my goodness. Oh, now you're all ready to show us how to put that decorative stitching in there. Have made a few little changes.
I switched to a single needle, universal needle, and previously I was using the outside tunnel. Well, now I'm going to switch over to the tunnels that are on what I call the toe of the foot. In other words, we're going to
You're
center
still using
it.
that wide foot though.
Yes, I'm using the same foot, but I'm using a different tunnel under the foot.
Okay.
So now I'm just going to let it guide through, and with the support of the extra stabilizer, I'm going to be able to run a decorative stitch right between those 2 rows of pin tucks.
Well, that is, okay, so you've got, there are 2 grooves that are guiding along your 2 pin tucks. Goodness me, that means it cannot go crooked, right?
It can't go crooked, and actually, in a lot of cases, I let go of the fabric, and it'll just track by itself. If you,
Let go.
if you have your pin tucks done with a blade where they're raised, they will probably be able to track through on their own without any additional help.
I just think that is fascinating. Perfect, and I see what it is. Those 2, the 2 pin tucks are going. Oh, you let go. Okay, I see that. That is wonderful, and it's still going straight.
Still going straight.
This is what you call truly hands-free sewing.
Yes, it is.
Oh, that is absolutely beautiful.
Now, when we finish this, we're going to tear away the stabilizer that we added. I did use the liquid fabric stiffener in my fabric to give it stability to prevent puckering before I started with this, so my pin tucks would raise. But I added just a little bit more stabilizer behind it whenever I get ready to do my decorative stitches.
Darlene, I love no hands. I love it. Oh my, that is absolutely fascinating. And it's finishing up the no hands, and I really love those 2 grooves there. Oh my goodness. Well, Darlene, I am so glad that you shared these special techniques and these wonderful feet where you don't even have to guide it. Next, we have a home decorating project for you. Darlene, this is such a beautiful and a very, very easy pillow to make. You know what I just love? That if you really, these beautiful machine embroideries can be used for home decorating. It can be used for clothing, such as your wonderful suit that you have the decorating. This is a bolster pillow, and you've told me it's easy, so I'm just going to let you show me how easy it is, okay?
Thank you, Martha. The first thing I've done is started off with a piece of fabric, just a square of batiste fabric, and I've stabilized it with my liquid fabric stiffener spray. And so it'll be easy for me to find the center placement. I've just pressed it with the iron just to find the center fold crease. Because of the fact that I want to do this more quickly, I've purchased embroidered ribbon. I'm going to pin it in place right on the center fold crease, and I'm simply going to zigzag just right on the very edges. Or if you chose, you could use decorative stitches to make it a little bit prettier. So on this piece, I have already put my ribbon down. I've just used the zigzag stitch on here, and then I've taken the pin tuck foot that had the spacing placement and done my pin tucks. Now my next step would be to go ahead and just run the decorative stitches in underneath. And then what I need to do is make a ruffle for the very ends, because you're going to put a ruffle on each ends of these pieces. I've already put a piece of fabric in that's going to be my ruffle, and on this one I just used the serger for a rolled hem, but I could also use decorative stitching from my machine. You see I've done a little lace edging just with scallops on the sewing machine. So I have that. However you want to finish off your edges, you can do that. And I have a ruffler attachment, or a shirring foot as we may call it, already set up on the foot, so you can see how easy it is to make that ruffle.
Oh, that's
simply
just magic.
simply just let it run through, and it's going to automatically ruffle this up. Now when you get this done, you're going to sew the ruffle on each one of the ends of your piece of fabric. And this is what it's going to look like. Simply just a square, and you have your pillow cover finished. So the next thing we want to do is to actually make our bolster pillow. And it's so easy. All we need to do is to get fiber fill or batting. I just have a long strip of this, and however long it is or however thick it is will determine how fat or thick your bolster pillow is. Now mine is 12 inches wide, but you can make this any width that you want, and you're just simply going to start rolling it up. When you get all the way to the end, then you're going to be able to have it finished. I just quickly did a quick little hand stitch to keep this together. Now we need to make our pillow cover for the bolster cover. So once you get this done, however thick it comes out, just lay it down on a piece of fabric, trace around it, and you've got your pattern for how round your bolster is going to be. You'll need to cut out 2 pieces of your fabric with laying your pattern over it, and then determine how wide your pillow is. Add yourself about 1/2 of an inch on the width on each side for your seams if you want to do 1/4 inch seams. And give yourself about a 4-inch overlap so that you'll have an overlap for your bolster pillow to fit in. And you're simply going to sew this on each end. Don't forget to serge off or finish off the ends. And this is what your cover is going to look like. It's just going to be a little round end on each piece with the overlap. You're simply going to take your bolster pillow that you've just made, slip it in the pillow form. It's pretty easy, and it's just going to tuck in. This way, if you ever need to wash it, you can do that. So we're ready to put our pillow cover on our bolster. We're just going to take the square that we've just finished, lay it face down. Take our bolster that we just made, roll it up.
How pretty.
Take 2 pieces of ribbon, and mine are about 18 inches long, but you can make them longer if you choose. Wrap them around the ends, tie them into a little pretty bow, and then straighten them out. You'll want to do this on each end. Such a simple little pillow.
Darlene, that is so precious. And you told me it was easy. I don't guess I really believed it would be quite that easy. And such a wonderful way to have fun using the embroidery unit on your sewing machine. And now I will have another very special project for you. It is a doll dress with all kinds of interesting work on it. I bet some of you are thinking, well, you know, Martha, I don't have any little girls that I'm making doll dresses for. Well, let me share with you something really interesting that surprised me about 10 years ago when I found it out. Do you know that the doll industry, making dolls, dressing dolls, collecting dolls, making bears, dressing bears, collecting bears, do you know that some people say that this is second only to stamp collecting as far as popularity of hobbies in the United States of America? And what I would like to tell you is that doll dressing is more, rather than for little girls, it's more for little girls like me. And I, Lord willing, I'll be 54 years old this year. And little girls who are maybe 75 and 85 and 95, as well as little girls who are 6 years old and 25 years old. What I'm really trying to say is doll dressing is a wonderful hobby for any age, and especially is it wonderful if you really love to sew. The dress we have today is really special, and the technique is a lot of fun too. Our little beautiful porcelain doll, let's start here at the very top. She has an entredeaux, a neckline with gathered lace at the top and gathered lace at the bottom, which I think is pretty. Now look at this teeny puffing, which is what it looks like coming down the front. Well, that's the technique I'm going to share with you today. It's so pretty and easy. This wonderful little shirred puffing is over here on her sleeves also. And then as we move down her skirt, what a pretty ruffle on the skirt with edging at the top, 3 rows of this really interesting shirring I'm going to show you here in a few minutes, and then a pretty piece of lace on the bottom. Now this is a brand new technique, so let me share it with you. First of all, I would like to run the rows, just simply the rows of zigzagging onto a piece of fabric. Those shirred ruffles look like this to begin with. Now, I have a foot here with 9 holes in it, so I'm going to put the cording in the middle of the foot, but you don't have to have a foot with 9 holes in it. You can just draw a line and guide it. I'm also going to guide this second line. I'm going to put the foot right against the first line that I've just made. Now then, let me tell you what my width. The width is 2.5 and the length is 2.0. I'm simply going to stitch on both sides of this cording. I do not want to catch it. I want to be sure it doesn't catch, and this foot I'm using assures that. And if you don't have one of these feet, you just kind of be real careful and hold it to be sure that you don't catch the cording, because the cording is then going to be used as my gathering foot. Now I'm going to move on down here a little bit. Okay, now you see what I've done there. Now then I'm going to come in here, snip it just a little bit, and I'm going to show you what it looks like at that point. At this point, when I run all of my gathering rows, my fabric is going to look like this. Now, I'm going to have to take the little cording that I have just zigzagged down. That's the reason that foot is so nice, so I really did not catch it. But you can be careful if you don't have one of those feet also. I'm going to shear it all the way across and just pull the gathers. Now some of you might be saying, well, Martha, why in the world didn't you just use elastic thread in the bobbin? Well, I'll tell you, that could be done, but I think the shearing is a little more perfect if you don't do it that way. Now then, when you get it gathered up, it's going to look somewhat like this. And as you see, I have distributed my gathers as near perfectly as they can be distributed. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just simply to remove that wonderful little foot with the 9 holes in it. Now I am going to use, for my next foot, I'm going to go ahead and put on this pintuck foot. I'm going to tell you why. It means that when I get ready to zigzag, and by the way, I'll need to take my zigzag down, let me see, the length, I believe I'll go down to about a 0.6 to make it shorter so it'll be more of a buttonhole stitch. Now I am going to lower the middle of the pintuck foot right on this shirred area, and then I'm going to simply go in here and zigzag it using my pintuck foot. I'm going to zigzag right along there, and I can go just as fast as I want to. And with these little rows of shirring, you might want to take your shish kebab stick and just hold it down a little bit. But I love using the pintuck foot because it means that little groove right in the middle, it will just hold it, and I don't have a chance of, of veering off one way or the other. I can just simply guide it in the groove of the little pintuck foot. Now you don't have to have the pintuck foot. You can just simply use a zigzag foot. And I'm doing a little satin stitch over that. And I'm using purple thread so you can see it just a little bit more easily. Okay, now let me bring this around here and show you what I've just done. See, I've zigzagged down, and I probably, unless I wanted this kind of special effect, I wouldn't use purple. But you see, this is where I just gathered it up, and then I'm going to zigzag it down and kind of have a satin stitch. And people, see how tiny that puffing is? That really is no more than ½ an inch wide. And this is really nice for doll dressing. Let me tell you something kind of funny, speaking about doll dressing, and then I'll show you how we're going to finish off that bodice. I have a lot of my doll makers around the country that come to my classes, and they say, Martha, I've got to come learn learn how to make those beautiful doll dresses like the ones you do on Martha's Sewing Room, because I have a nudist colony at home. And at first I thought, you have a what? Well, the dolls that they make, of course, don't have any clothes until they get busy and sew some clothes. So we're helping people to really get their dolls dressed beautifully. And I know a lot of you probably really enjoy making dolls. And hopefully, after watching Martha's Sewing Room, you're going to enjoy dressing them too. Okay, let's look at the last step over here. After I get the whole top shirred and zigzagged down, then I'm going to take the bodice pattern just like this, and I'll take my magic purple pen and draw around it. And then after I draw around it, I will just straight stitch around it one time, and then I will cut out my bodice. And that's all it takes to make this beautiful narrow puffing to make a wonderful doll dress like the one I've just shared with you. And now I'd like to invite you to come along with me to my attic. This beautiful antique dress came from an estate in Massachusetts. I guess this dress is about circa 1910. Now, you do know what circa means. It means either 10 years after that date or 10 years before that date. I really think 1910 is a really good guesstimate on this dress, though. Very interesting features and very unusual features. The first really unusual feature to me is the use of the little colored buttons. Those three little purple buttons, they're just a really pretty little clear, almost look like Austrian crystal buttons, but there are three little purple buttons on the collar. And then there are sets of 3 tucks, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, Darlene has shown you some really wonderful ways of using pin tucks with embroidery in the middle. And look here what this dress has. Wide tucks, now not pin tucks, but wide tucks with magnificent hand embroidery down the middle. So you see, I guess Darlene and I could know that there really aren't too many brand new things. This sleeve, I think, is very, very interesting too. I'd like to turn it around and share it with you. See how pretty the cuff is? It comes up in a little circular shape and then goes down just into a regular cuff. But I thought that sleeve was very unusual, and I'm not really sure I've ever seen one exactly like that. Moving down around the waistline, I just think this is absolutely beautiful. More of the hand embroidery makes that little band that goes right around the waist, and the little tucks and all the fullness gather into that band. The skirt on this dress is really, really beautiful, and I believe you can see it better if I go ahead and lift it up just a little bit and spread it out. Isn't that a magnificent skirt? What more can I say? Now, the really fun part about looking at this skirt, I think this year, is to know that with today's wonderful embroidery machines, it will be very, 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 very easy for me or for you to recreate this skirt. There's just a little row of unusual flowers here. These are iris. There's no doubt about it. The flowers are iris, and then they have pretty leaves. And then I would almost say these look like lily of the valley, or really they look like tiny little hearts. You could just take a little built-in heart, the little features on your sewing machines, or if you have one of the machines that does the big embroidery, you could choose any one of the designs. Now, another thing I really loved, you see after all the designing has been done, there are the pretty little scallop borders that come around like this. The little scallop borders that come around, embellishing, and then a simple hem has been turned up. And believe it or not, with all of this hand embroidery, the hem has been straight stitched in with a sewing machine. Wonderful, wonderful embroidery, something that would be so terribly easy to do today. Now then, for my Sewing from the Heart, I would like to read a beautiful letter to me for you. Dear Martha, I went with my Baptist church on 2 missionary trips to Jamaica. My job was to teach vacation Bible school to children. I have enclosed a photo of Father Abraham puppets we carried for the children to draw, color, and complete. They were made from the cutoffs of long-sleeved white shirts. Cutting off old white shirts doesn't involve too much sewing, just a lot of love in cutting. The children love decorating their own puppets. Thanks for a great sewing program. This is from Joyce O'Brien from Huntsville, Alabama, and she sent along this absolutely beautiful picture of the Jamaican children who had enjoyed using their cut-off white shirts. And I thought, boy, that's a wonderful project and a really easy one too. Thank you so much for coming to visit with me in my sewing room today. I would certainly like to invite you to join me next time.